Hey. So, I'll sit like this, I guess. So, yeah, it's not been that long, but it's been a little while since I made, my last video on this channel, at least, talking about stuff. Um, and yeah, I don't know, I just haven't really felt like there's been things to talk about, obviously. I just haven't felt like really talking or whatever. But, it was interesting that Billy from Stardust Simulation made a video recently, and almost right after that, or right before that, Rudy made a video as well. I mean, Rudy pretty somewhat often makes videos and stuff, but seeing Billy make one was interesting, especially like right afterwards. One thing, one thing, Rudy, I'm surprised you used the community post uh feature, like kind of like somewhat new feature that they added like probably like barely a few years ago. Um Even though it's not like necessarily a bad feature or anything, it's just like they don't like you as far as I could tell, you can't even get notifications or anything like as a subscriber or whatever to somebody about those community posts, which is ironic that it's called a, community post, but unless the people actively go to your channel and look at the posts sub menu or whatever you want to say, like instead of videos you go to post for the community post, unless they actively go there on their own volition, like look up your channel and then specifically go to that post tab, nobody ever sees it. And it's like, it's hilarious that they added that feature. And it's, I mean, obviously, you know how things work, but it's hilarious they added that feature specifically for like just posts like that community, but then they don't even show your like subscribers or anything that stuff that you post. Like you they have to go out of their way to search every time to see if you posted something new or whatever. It's like ridiculous. Which is, I mean, I just don't have much desire to post things in that kind of fashion, I guess, in a lot of cases, but like that's the main reason I would never use that, just because it's like, I don't know, like unless somebody actively goes to your channel and checks that every once in a while, like you don't even like the subscribers don't even get like an email or something. They can't even, like, as far as I can tell, you can't even like purposely do that. It's fucking ridiculous. um I guess I'll just do, like, I'm just completely off the cuff here for the most part, but I guess I'll do like a very quick like update on like cooking, baking shit or whatever, just really quick. Just for my own sake, I guess, more than anything. I don't know the last time I exactly talked about this, so I forget which was my last thing, but I used this tart pan a few, like, yeah, I guess just a little bit more than a month back. I use these fluted tart pans or whatever, um, to make a tart with what would you call it? Like graham cracker crust, and was that graham cracker? What? I think that was it. Just graham cracker and butter. Maybe I added something different. I forget. But yeah, the actual filling on top or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it was interesting. It was pretty good. It was like a cheesecake, but more crust and less filling kind of deal, and it was surprisingly pretty good actually. I was kind of like, I was not so much skeptical about like how good it would be or like the validity of a tart kind of pan and stuff, but it came out pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised. It was kind of hard to, like, I mean, besides the fact I was following a recipe, like, if you tried to eyeball how much filling you'd need, it'd be kind of difficult because it's not like unlike a pan where you can kind of have like a volume that you know exactly like how much you kind of have to work with. With the tart pan, like filling it, it's very up in the air. Like it's probably gonna be it's probably gonna have a lot less room for filling than you might imagine. Which is probably the more difficult thing. I made this other thing, this West African lime cake. It was called. I basically just used lime zest or no lime juice and a few other. It was actually really surprisingly good. Like it was. It didn't have to be a white cake like this. It could have been like a yellow cake, but I used egg yolks. I used egg yolks for the tart. Um, I used egg yolks for the tart. So I was like, why use entire eggs for this and then waste the egg whites? I just used egg whites instead for this cake instead of the yolks, and I think I might have added I added a little bit more milk to substitute the reduction of liquids or whatever, and it actually came out really good. It was like fairly dense, but the lime flavor really shone through more than I expected. Maybe that was partially the fact that it was a without the yolks, so the flavor could kind of like stand out more. It was surprisingly good for like how simple it kind of was. Oh yeah, I also think I doubled the recipe from because I think it asked for an 8x8, so I just doubled it in a 9x13 in pan, and it came out surprisingly good. I made after that I made some simple oatmeal cookies with these craisins we had left that I wanted to get rid of, and it came out good. These came out surprisingly good. These spicy Mexican brownies, and it like wasn't anything that crazy, but it was just a brownie recipe. One, I doubled it because once again it was an 8x8 recipe, and I just said fuck it. And apparently, like I looked up on Chat GPT or whatever. The volume difference between a 9x13 and an 8x8 is about like is that how it works? Is about double, I guess. So I was just like, all right, I'll just double the recipe like completely, and then just put it in the pan, and it came out pretty much perfectly in terms of that. And I'd never, um, I'd never used a brownie recipe that actually had like melted chocolate, like that you had to heat up and melt and then mix into the batter and stuff. I think that's probably the best way to make brownies, really, like instead of just with cocoa powder, because usually with just cocoa powder it comes out more cakey and stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like maybe some people like brownie, but these brownies were like picture perfect kind of like uh, fudginess, and just like yeah, they came out really fucking good, and that's definitely the best brownies I've made before. And I'll probably use that recipe any other times I make brownies. Just like I know it takes more effort because the melting chocolate and stuff is not that big of a deal, but they came out very good. The fudginess and everything, that was actually brownies, not just like a kind of chocolate cake thing that many brownies come out like. But they were very good. Cranberry orange nut bread. Once again, I had more cranberries to get rid of. This came out. It doesn't look very pretty, but it was very surprisingly flavorful with the orange zest and the orange juice and stuff. I didn't have like a cross section or anything, but it was pretty good. Oh yeah, I tried to make like those like I don't know if they're called Little Debbie's, like uh oatmeal pie things where you have like two oatmeal cookies sandwiched between like cream or whatever. I didn't chill this enough, I'm pretty sure, and I probably cooked them on the wrong type of pan, and they spread out way too much, and I was just like, all right. After I saw what was happening, I was like, fuck it. So I just cooked them, let them spread out, said fuck it, just made these really thin, fair, somewhat burnt oatmeal cookies. I was like, screw it. This is like a dinner thing I made, and then I made this recently. It was just the cheesecake recipe, but I substituted some stuff for basically I substituted the flour that it added with like a fair amount of cocoa powder. Definitely added a little bit too much cocoa powder, I think. But all things. Oh yeah, I also made the instead of graham cracker crust, I used like these chocolate cookies, cream cookies, whatever you want to, like Oreos, but I used like the store brand ones. Put them in a food processor. Tried, made them as fine as I could really get them, and the crust came out all right, but it was definitely not as good as the graham crackers in terms of like how it came together with the butter. It was kind of weird how it didn't like mix very well compared to the graham crackers. I'm not exactly sure why. I probably didn't process them enough and made them like fine enough. But in the end, even though it was a little bit, maybe a tiny bit too bitter from the chocolate, the cocoa powder, probably a little bit too much cocoa powder, I was surprised it came out pretty decent. I think it would have came out better if I did it like with the brownies, where I made like chocolate melted and stuff and then added it in. But it was pretty good overall, all things considered. Considering I just winged it too, like I used the normal recipe I did and just substituted whatever. And then the most recent thing I made, which is like a day after I made those, was these brown butter cookies where you actually like melt the butter and then you heat it up long enough, simmer it long enough until it actually starts like I don't know, the milk parts inside the butter start browning and like not like burning necessarily, but browning, and it gives this like more nutty aroma and flavor and stuff. I think in terms of like the cookie dough consistency, when I let them sit in the fridge, the dough in the fridge for like a night or two, it was like probably the perfect consistency for like cookie dough and everything. Like it didn't feel like super oily to work with or like anything like that. It was just like perfect. Um, and my parents really like them. And I like them too. They're pretty good. It's just I didn't detect like enough of the nutty flavor, even though I could smell it when I was making the browning the butter. I could smell the nuttiness. I didn't detect enough while actually eating the cookie. So I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't brown it enough. It seemed like I did, but I don't know. But they're still very good. It's just maybe not as like crazy different than I was expecting, I guess. But yeah, they did come out very good, even outside of that expectation or whatever. All right, talked about that longer than I thought. Apologies. Uh, don't show me this again. Yeah, fuck off. Don't show me this again. Discord. And one of the, before I forget, because I didn't note it down, but yeah, Rudy, you mentioned in your most recent thing with the whole like you're talking about the guy Better Bachelor, Joker, whatever. I remember it's funny. I remember that guy. All right, I remember. I didn't really watch him, I don't think, but I remember hearing about him often when I was years ago when I was kind of into that stupid like not so much the red pill thing, but more the the MGTOW kind of thing or whatever, like that kind of way of thinking or whatever. Like I was never into that whole thing of like blaming like anybody else or other people, and in that case, there was especially women. Like it was so much victim mentality shit that would came from it, and then eventually I was just like, I don't really like agree with a lot of this BS. Like I kind of agree with some of the aspects of it. Um, like at the time, the inequality of the marriage and everything, but then when you realize that like the entire system is designed this way on purpose, and the entire system is like fraudulent or whatever you want to say. It's all, it's simulation kind of shit. That all kind of just goes out the window. But when I was into that stuff, I do remember hearing about this guy, and I might have listened to him a few times. But yeah, it's hilarious to me now that like he's still making videos and still around, and they're still talking about like the same kind of shit. Just as it always happens, it's like these people are still talking about these topics, like they haven't adapted or changed seemingly like almost any of their philosophies at all, or like any have done like seemingly no further self reflection based on these things. Which kind of makes stuff like that guy come off almost like to me the term grifter or whatever. It's like these guys, they're obviously I don't know. It's just like with what's his face, the stupid movie reviewers, like Critical Drinker, like they know where their bread is buttered kind of thing. Like they know where their viewers come from. So if they actually like updated I mean, even though I think it's a download thing to an extent, like if we're thinking about it logically, it's like I would think that these people wouldn't, but it's probably, like I said, more of a download thing. I don't think I could actually give that much credit to them in that sense, like that they actually would do this. They're just being deceptive or whatever. It's like, but yeah, that is pretty funny. But and yeah, you're right. And I never really thought about it, that it is funny that it's like these guys, especially the ones that are like still into dating or still into hooking up or whatever. It's like, the guys, they don't want whores or they don't want sluts or whatever. They don't want women that sleep around, but then they don't see the kind of hypocrisy, obviously, with them being all right with sleeping around. But then they'll give the argument, the quote unquote logical argument of, oh, well, historically, even though all the history is bullshit anyway, oh yeah, historically the guy, it's fine, harems and stuff like that. Like women are fine with or polygamy and stuff like that. Like they're fine with that, having one husband with multiple wives or shit like that. Or, I mean, you kind of see it in like animals, like male cats. They kind of just go around and fuck whatever female cats there are, as far as I can tell. And they don't really stick around, kind of deal. But I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm just saying they could give those reasons. But yeah, it is pretty funny in this context, the hypocrisy of them not really even seeming to realize, like, you're being like man whores, but then or sluts, whatever, acting this way, but you want somebody who acts differently or whatever. Like you're being hypocrites there. They're being hypocrites there or whatever, which isn't surprising. Basically everybody is a hypocrite at the end of the day when you actually get down and dirty, or get down to the nitty gritty about it. The other thing you mentioned at the end, something about like people should talk to their fathers or whatever and ask them, like, why did you, like, what was your reason for getting involved with this crazy person, like your wife, kind of deal. And I probably might have talked about this at some point, but I have had this conversation with my dad before a couple of times, like probably one or two times more like serious, but a lot of other times just like kind of jokingly. But he doesn't really give a reason, but he seemingly can't really give a good reason, I guess. But from what I can ascertain, and the reason, like he seemingly joking reason he does give, but maybe it's true, is his, at least in his perspective when he was young, his family was okay, well, his family was kind of like the Brady Bunch compared to his wife, my mom, compared to her family, which was like, very, very outwardly neglectful and abusive and a broken family and stuff, like, like 6 siblings, 6 kids. The father is divorced from the mother. The mother's a fucking crazy bitch. I mean, the father's an asshole for having that many kids and then not sticking around or whatever. Like, the mother's a crazy bitch. My grandmother, whatever. That kind of thing. And then kind of like basically him abandoning his kids in that sense. But then you go to my dad, in comparison, his family was like the Brady Bunch comparison. And my dad says he kind of he kind of seen her the difference, and he liked that or whatever. Like he was attracted to the fact that it was so different from his own family kind of deal, or the situation was so much different from his. The opposites attract or whatever kind of deal. Like him him being in the Brady Bunch, he wanted to go to something different, kind of. So that's the reason that I kind of that's like the best thing that I could get out of him in the actual like reasons that that he got together with my my crazy mom or whatever, even though she was had so many red flags after before their marriage and after their marriage, early after the marriage and stuff like that, especially of massive insecurity from her and other crap like that. But that was like the main one that he kind of gave that I could kind of like get anything from, is that he was interested or attracted to the chaos compared to his more less crazy, I guess, less like less insane kind of family compared to hers, kind of, I guess, or the instability or the instability of hers compared to his, I guess. So that's kind of what attracted him to that, I guess, initially. Um, which I don't know if that's how most guys kind of like getting. That's I kind of doubt it, but it's just that seems to be the thing, the best like reason, if you want to call it that, that I got from him involving that question. Um, I think that's the main things that I was going to talk about that I remember specifically from your video. Um, in that regard, even though it was a pretty long video, but that was the main two things that I was going to talk about that I didn't want to forget, I guess. But another thing that I obviously noted down, it's been on the screen here, was something I noticed a few days ago, which I just found fucking funny. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, it's not like a surprise. It was just something I wanted to note down because I noticed it as it was happening, and I was just like, oh my, I was just like, man, and then nobody's even gonna like, obviously, none of the normies, whatever, nobody's gonna fucking notice at all. Nobody's gonna have any pattern recognition or whatever here at all. Even though it happened like in such quick, like fucking such immediate quick succession, like right after one after the other. But I noticed the first one that I noticed, and I think it was the first one that happened like in this sequence that I noticed at least, was Nexus Mods changed or like pretty much overhauled their website's UI and stuff from what it was, like not like just a little change, like a pretty big overhaul kind of, for the most part. Um that happened. A lot of people were upset after that, obviously, because they just kind of did it like as it always is. These websites and all that stuff. These egregores, these entities, uh, that we see as like these companies or whatever. But yeah, Nexus Mods changed their UI pretty massively, and a lot of people were upset. And even just today, they made like a response to all the people being upset, and they made like a fake bullshit apology, and then people are even more upset about that, saying that basically they're not going to make any changes, even from people's feedback, saying like these things are worse and stuff like that. But yeah, few like a week ago, not even a week ago, maybe it was about a week ago, like let's say 7 days. Let's say 7 days, maybe more. Nexus Mods changed their UI. I was like, okay, this is what these websites always do. Not that surprising, but the fact that I was just seeing it in such quick a session was, which is the hilarious thing. But then maybe 2 or 3 days later, Discord changed their UI, which is not, as with all these, they're not. It's not unheard of them doing this, like changing their UI suddenly. But just something to note is that Discord changed their UI a fairly large degree, not like a massive one. Like Nexus was bigger, but Discord definitely changed their UI. It is very noticeable difference. Um, Once again, people pretty quickly saying, like, man, this looks like shit. At least the servers that I was on, this new this Discord update or the UI looks like shit or worse now, kind of deal. And I was like, oh, I mean, almost immediately, I'm like, there's some pattern going on. And then another, like, 2 or 3 days later, I noticed the fucking website, um, Wowhead, the like most prominent and biggest database thing and place that people go at this point for World of Warcraft related, like, wiki info kind of deal and information about the game and stuff. It also overhauled its UI for its websites as well. And then I just noted down, like, wow, okay, three pretty major sites. And I'm sure there's more examples. It's just these are the ones that I saw right away that I would be using fairly often. Three major sites within like 2 or 3 days of each other, all changing, overhauling their UI in a pretty big way. Just like, oh wow. Coincidence? Of course not. There is no coincidences. And I guess just on that topic, I will show the new UI. Nexus Nexus mods. The mod page UI doesn't look that much different, but when you go to this, it looks like way different. It looks way different to what it was before, and I don't care that much. But I could tell right away that I'm like, yeah, this looks shittier than it did and stuff, and a lot of people are upset. They even had a an update on the mod browsing overhaul. Why did we change the UI and then all this shit and then you got a first comment? It's getting a preference option. I think there was a pretty big comment saying basically go fuck yourself, kind of. I think they deleted that. They almost definitely deleted that, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, who could have guessed? Who could have guessed? Um, I guess I could show I mean, you could see on the Discord, like, it's not a massive change, but it definitely changed. Um, it definitely changed. It looks different. It looks a fair amount different. Not nearly as massive as the Nexus mod thing, but still different. And then on Wowhead, once again, this looks a lot like they used to have, like, the search bar was over here. It was like probably, I would say, in a more like obvious spot, kind of easier to see, but instead of up here. Um, Once again, like, not like a massive, but they all kind of changed to the same kind of, like, um I don't even know what you call it, like this, like, very soulless kind of, obviously very soulless kind of, like, fucking UI design where it's just like these gray and black, like, transparent, like, boxes and rectangle. I don't know how to describe it, but, like, it just looks very quote unquote modern website deal, and it just looks shittier, just looks more soulless, looks more like crappy for the most part. But not a coincidence, just something I noticed and I wanted to bring up because I thought it was kind of funny. Uh, and especially just how, like, it wasn't like a week apart, even like a month apart or anything. Fucking days between each other, days between each other. They just all like, oh yeah, we're just changing our UI now. It's like, uh, and then another pattern and another thing I noticed, uh, just today. well, not today, but a few days ago, and then today I noticed something else, but that was like a pattern forming. But so my parents about a month ago did their taxes. They used a this shitty CSI group, like some certified CPA company. These people are complete fucking idiots. Like, it makes me laugh. I'm like, they have no fucking clue what they're doing. These CPA schmucks, but laughably bad. Next year, I just told my dad, I'm like, I think I'm just gonna do your fucking taxes, because it seems to be the case where I'm. Hey, the fuck? Hey, man, what the fucking thing? Print screen. Yeah, why? Whatever. Um, but I told him, I'm like, I think I'll just do it next year, because I did it a few years in a row, like years back, and it wasn't really that hard. But I just stopped doing it because, I don't know, my parents were being like kind of annoying or whatever, so I was just like, fuck it. But the fact that I have to get involved anyway with these idiot CPAs, that it's just like, fuck it, I'll probably just do it next year. But anyway, besides that, so after they filed their taxes, this was the first time in a while that they were actually supposed to be getting a refund instead of having to pay, um, instead of having to pay them or whatever, pay the government taxes themselves. They're actually getting a refund, supposed to be getting a refund. And it was taking longer than expected, and then my dad got something in the mail saying that basically he had to do like some verification through this like government website or whatever first before he would get his refund or whatever. And I was just like, wait a minute. This is the first time, even when you've gotten returns before, that you've ever had to do like some extra step of a verification or whatever. And it was fucking like ridiculous. Like, I had to fucking take a picture of his license. Well, one, I had to make an account on this stupid this, like, he already has like a government account with, he already has a government account called like login.gov for some other stuff, like I think filing his taxes or something through like seeing it through the government websites directly, that kind of stuff. But then on this new one, he had to do like ID.gov or like ID.me or some bullshit like that, ID.me. And I was like, why the fuck does he have to make another login like for this bullshit government stuff? Um, I was like, okay, fuck it. So did all that, and then I was like, okay, I gotta take a picture of his fucking license, and then I had to fucking tell him to hold the phone up to his face so it could do like a life verification or life living verification or some shit, like that the person is not a robot or whatever. And it did like a fucked up picture of his face, and then somehow that verified that he's an actual person or whatever. And I think I had to do something else, and it was just a fucking stupid ass process. Um, but I was just like, okay. So then people might say, oh, well, this is the new bullshit government and lone scum or whatever, muskrat. They're, the Doge, Department of Government Efficiency fucking nonsense. Oh yeah, they're verifying now and stuff. I was just like, oh wow, this is some stupid bullshit now. But then it was funny. I was fucking just today. I was deciding just to. I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna goon a bit. So I went on this one website that I like to go on. This fucking furry website, like E621 or whatever the fuck it is. This like furry data. I don't know what you whatever the fuck they call those websites that they just have like they just host a shit ton of images and stuff. Um, and what the fuck was it? It was like, oh yeah, we need to, but due to new like regulations or some bullshit. I'm like, what the fuck? This is like a fucking stupid porn website. Uh, and they need to do some bullshit like they're doing this bullshit verification. They're like something, draw your persona. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, what the fuck is this? But that was one thing, but it just made me laugh. I was just thinking, like, wait a minute. Again, another pattern. I'm like, so the government for taxes doing this bullshit, all of a sudden, like, nonsense verification shit. And then, of all things, this fucking stupid furry porn website doing some other verification thing to what's the term? Comply or whatever with fucking some stuff. I was just like, what? Just another fucking absurd pattern of shit just happening, and like all these websites just all of a sudden like doing this stuff like out of the fucking blue, and you're just like, well, again, no coincidences. There is no coincidences ever, and this is no exception. Uh, and yeah, I just found that hilarious. Just how everything is just like even more so just like melding together. Like it's kind of like that stupid term that fucking autistic guy Chris Chan. I'm sure that Bill. I mean I'm sure that Rudy. I'm sure you've heard about this guy at least once. This internet legend of lolcow or whatever, Chris Chan, and that was one of the things that he brought up, the merge or whatever, like his retarded concept that, oh yeah, soon the world is going to merge, the cartoon world that his Sonichu and fucked up Sonichu fantasy that he was so infatuated with is going to merge, and like other cartoons like and shit are gonna merge. Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or some shit with the quote unquote real world. Uh and it just makes me think of that, where it's like this reality, this matrix is merging now, like merging gradually, like melding together in some weird ways, like everything, like as I've said before, like the weather patterns, like everybody seems to be, at least if you're going by the internet and the fake news, like if you look at it, the patterns, whatever you want to say, like it seems like now this, like, once again, when everything kind of just like with 9/11 or 2001, whatever, where the reality changed, like COVID or whatever you want to say, not 2019, 2020, whatever, everything changed again, or once again it changed. And like now the weather is just like all one, it's all fucked up in so many different ways, but it's like everybody experiences around the world seemingly like the same kind of like phenomenons or whatever, like the same kind of like, if it's if it's all of a sudden super windy and super stormy or super cold suddenly, like in the east coast of the US, seemingly like people in Australia or whatever will be experiencing like the same kind of shit, or people in the UK will be experiencing the same kind of shit. Where it's like that was never a thing before. Like the weather had like patterns, or not patterns, but the weather had like everybody around the world will be experiencing it. But it seems like now the weather is like all homogenized. Like everybody's experiencing the same shit at the same time, seemingly. Uh, and so many. I mean, I guess it's the same thing with like the fake news or whatever. Like all these bullshit events and stuff that get brought up on the screens. Everybody like knows about it almost, and it's all like once again homogenized. Everything is just coming together, merging together. Uh, and one could say the same thing with the time and stuff. I mean, there's so much I could talk about with the time. Uh, but I don't really have proper notes like to just list out like everything. But yeah, the time has been like absurd. Um, and I've just been trying to kind of like not think about it, not so much not think about it and like just like ignore it or whatever, but just kind of like not to like. I'm not even concerned about it. Just not even like consider it. It's like, fuck it, whatever. That's just how it is now. Like, the time just goes super fast, but seemingly almost nobody. Well, okay, people do regard it, but they don't. Once again, they have no pattern recognition or whatever. They don't put two and two together. Like what I mentioned with that guy Tim Kaine or whatever, in one of your comments, or in on one of your videos in the comments, I mentioned like that he brought up that games people don't what was it? People used to not say that game that wasn't a term that used to really exist. Like something respecting your time, like how games nowadays a lot of people would say they don't respect your time, and they would say games back then or people like when a game respects their time or whatever. But that was a term that didn't even exist back then, even though there wasn't games that were like absurdly long like some of them can be now. Like when I played months back, even a few years back at this point or whatever, probably like at least a year back. Um, what was it? Um, Pathfinder Kingmaker. When I played Pathfinder Kingmaker, that fucking game, even though I did like it in a lot of ways, I did like it. There was a lot of bullshit and annoying things about it, and just like it was clearly way longer than it needed to be. And at the end, I was like pretty much like, all right, I just want to finish this and be done with it because it was like dragging on way too long at the end, clearly. Um, but yeah, that game in the end, even though yes, I didn't have to have it like I could have finished it probably in 50 hours, but I was pretty much trying to like explore almost everything that the game had to offer for the most part. And I think in the end it was like 200 hours of playtime or whatever. So that was like a pretty big, pretty not extreme, but a pretty big example of that kind of like, oh yeah, this game doesn't respect your time or whatever. People would say. But you wouldn't really see that like decades ago on like the Super Nintendo. Like you wouldn't have a game that would be like necessarily like you could probably play games obviously for 200 hours if you wanted to, but they just the game itself, one playthrough or whatever, would not be 200 hours. Like you'd really 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 have to be doing something intentionally to make it last that long or whatever. But even then, like games that were especially long, like some of these like RPGs or I don't know, like some of the rare like 4X kind of like those kind of games. Um, yeah, like people probably didn't mention like that they didn't like that the game wasn't respecting their time supposedly or whatever, but maybe it's more of a fact that people literally had more time or the perception of time, whatever you want to say, that so much so that they didn't feel that way about games. But then now, where people have less time, or the perception of time, whatever you want to say, or time has literally sped up, as I think it obviously has, if coming from me or whatever, like, I think so clearly it has, whatever time is, like the perception of it, the fake thing that time is, whatever it is, clearly something has changed with it, and it is clearly going quicker or whatever. We have less of it, whatever, in a day. But he mentioned that people say that about games that they like that this game respected the time, but as I said, like, or as you said, he didn't even like consider that. Like obviously, because the guy Tim Kaine, he's on the download heavily. He's one of those people that's heavily on the download, even though he's a creative person and stuff. He's made games and shit like that, but he's still heavily on the download. He's still pretty NPC in that sense. But he didn't even like notice that or think about that like at all, consider that like, oh, maybe time has changed or whatever. He was just like, he just said that. He was like, oh yeah, people say that they like this game that respected their time. But like back then nobody ever said that because people literally had more time or whatever. Um, Now, what was what was that? Well, I think I made that point that I wanted to make with that. Um, I got something noted down here that I noticed. I mean, now that the winter's over, kind of like now that the winter's technically over, even though it's the weather's so fucking weird, it's still some days it's like been freezing cold and shit. Um, but with the winter technically over, I noticed that the winter that just went by, I didn't have like the kind of seasonal depression that I'd had like consistently the past like years before that. The past few years before that of winter, like I feel like really like depressed and shitty during the parts of the winter months and stuff. But yeah, I didn't feel that like almost at all this year, which was interesting. I felt a little bit depressed in a similar way a few days ago, but I kind of got over that kind of quick. I'm not kind of forgetting exactly why I felt like it. Maybe just kind of like a listless. I didn't feel like doing the things that I normally would, or something like that. But it went away pretty quick. And I say I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those changes that was kind of like as anything, I guess, destined to happen. But maybe it's a good indication that I didn't feel the seasonal depression I normally would last this winter that just went by. Maybe that's a good sign of sorts. I don't know. Um that was just something I wanted to note. We'll have to see this coming year and the next years or whatever if I feel similar, I guess. Um I've definitely been very slow on like modding stuff just because I guess I've had more things that I've been able to kind of like distract myself with when I know that I know there's no point in that, but I just there's times where I just feel like doing some modding, like I feel like I should be doing it, but I just don't feel like doing it. But I have more ways to kind of distract myself recently, like other things that I do, like playing on that WoW server or whatever. That's been a pretty big way that I've been kind of distracting myself from doing that quote unquote productive stuff, even though there's no difference to it, honestly, but you know what I mean. Something that I feel like accomplishing in this goal or whatever, like working on these mods and stuff. It's just, it takes more work, and oftentimes I don't feel like doing it. Um, but yeah, I haven't been, I've been very slow on that, the past few months, which I don't really feel like necessarily bad about. Like I do feel bad about it to an extent, but I don't feel really that bad because I kind of realize now like it doesn't get me down as much as it might have many years back when I thought about this place in different ways. But it's still one of those things that I push myself to try to do, even though I a lot of times I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing that work or whatever of the coding and thinking about it and stuff like that. Um, Now was that all I could think of right now that I was going to talk about? Probably. I was actually going to try and talk while playing the thing, but I just said fuck it. I probably don't have that much to talk about right now after what I all just talked about already. Um, so I'm just like fuck it. I'll just do that. I'll just do that on my own time instead of doing it while I'm recording. Um, but yeah, I can't think of anything in this moment that I wanted to bring up, but anything more I wanted to bring up. But yeah, I've been pretty decent. I've not been like, I've been pretty like average or whatever. Like I haven't been like manic or or the opposite, like depressed or like massively or whatever. Like I haven't been like super high or super low kind of deal. I've just been very I would say more on the positive side, my mindset or whatever, which I think is nice. But at the same time, that kind of makes me not want to talk as much, just like I'm doing right now. Like I don't have the desire as much to like just talk about things. And in a lot of ways, I just don't feel like interacting with people online nearly as much as I might used to in some ways, because I'm just, that's kind of one of the other changes in my mindsets where I'm just like way more. I'm not in that kind of solipsistic mindset or whatever. No, well, okay, maybe I am in some ways, but I just kind of realized that most people online are either bots or just fake or NPCs or whatever, so I just don't really have nearly as much like care or desire to interact with them when I kind of know that it's either just going to be a fickle thing or like a very empty thing at the end of the day. So I just kind of don't care. Um oh yeah, that was this one just this one just came to mind, but I was when I was looking at the fucking oh well, one I'll bring that up. That fucking speaking of gooning, never that thumbnail I used was pretty funny. I mean, I knew it was AI generated, just because of how it looked and stuff. I knew it was AI generated, but I didn't know it was like just like a meme. But I do think it's a pretty fucking funny meme where it's just like stupid AI generated minions with a Never Goon T-shirt, fucking buff. Fucking, but that one's like my definitely my favorite. Fucking this one with the Never Goon. Oh shit. Um. God damn it. Shit. Did that make me lose what I was gonna be what I was gonna mention? No, no. So Rudy, you said for a while you were into like the art community stuff. Just something. Uh, Maybe if you wanted to bring up another thing or just whatever. Just I mean I don't think you would have a explanation to it either. Just like neither of us could really have like a quote unquote logical explanation to it. But it is a fucking funny phenomenon. I realized like what was it when I went on certain sites or yeah maybe on like hentai or whatever. I would sometimes go look through the comments of shit and somebody would say that like oh yeah this artist like that they have the gallery for that they uploaded they like nuked all of their like profiles or like this is like their fifth account of a different name and like everything else they nuked. What the fuck is up with that, man? With these like supposed I mean most of them are probably not even real or like NPCs whatever. What the hell is with that with these fucking artists that just like I, like I said, I don't think there's any actual explanation. It's just like a download thing, probably, or they're not even real kind of shit. But I think it's just funny the phenomenon that they just seemingly constantly, like, some of them at least, constantly, like, deleting their shit. I mean, even, it happens even with some of these, like, mod authors, for other mods, or for other games, I guess, that are, probably more, like, popular, like Skyrim and shit, where they just have like fucking hissy fits and they just like delete everything and then change all their account. It's just fucking I don't know, man. I mean, you can't even say like mental illness anymore because everybody's fucking mental nowadays, like by that definition. But yeah, it's just a fucking weird phenomenon and it just kind of makes me laugh anytime that I see like, oh yeah, this artist, oh yeah, they deleted all their shit. And it's just like I don't know me I'm not gonna say like oh yeah I'm some artist like I don't even want to like necessarily identify with any of that kind of crap and just be oh yeah I'm an artist but I make mods. I make what some would define as art, what I would define as art. Like I could define almost anything creative as art, but like I have no like I mean I know I'm a much different entity than most of these people probably a much different person and the way I look at things but like I have no desire to just like nuke all of my stuff or like and I don't even necessarily have like this strong desire to like the archivist or whatever kind of thing, but like I'm just like why would I delete all this shit? Like why would I care if it's on the internet or whatever? Like I mean besides some of the people that do shit that they would feel like oh that could get them in trouble so they delete it and stuff. It's just like I don't know. I just find the supposed act and the fact it's once again one of those like fucking proving that it's a fake reality kind of things. But I just find the that thing absurd or funny, absurd and funny, is that so many of these supposed artists and stuff they just fucking like nuke their whole profiles, make different accounts, make a new thing, and then they delete that one and delete all their stuff like just over and over. Like I don't know. To me, like I put my stuff on GitHub or whatever. I am fine with people using my stuff. Like yeah, I'd prefer if people like wouldn't take my stuff, and they never have. Like I don't have that insecurity because I know that's just not how most people would operate anyway. They wouldn't be like actively trying to steal your stuff. But like me, I don't know. I don't care. Just use my shit. I mean, I do the same thing. Like I go on fucking image searches and I just fucking take images and just use them whenever. I don't really give credits and stuff, and I don't really expect the same for myself. It's like I don't give a fuck. Like I made something, I put it on the internet, then in my mind it's basically free for anyone to use from there. Like I put it on there, so I don't know. I would have no desire to like nuke everything, delete everything. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. You are in the art community more, so maybe I'm sure you've experienced seeing that more, and some of these people having hissy fits and fucking meltdowns and stuff. But I just found that phenomenon funny. But I think now that it's reaching an hour, I think that's all I wanted to say right now. Big ramble as usual, but disjointed ramble. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, I guess. I got some of my thoughts out, and either way, I hope everybody is doing well and all that, and continues to do well in this crazy clown matrix that we put ourselves in to do whatever, to play, experience whatever. But yeah, have a good one, and I hope to see you again, and yeah, have a good one. See ya.